And thanks for joining us this evening. We're so glad you could join us for our webinar, again with the Canadian Children's Literacy Foundation. And we have our Suzanne with us as well tonight from the Canadian Childcare Federation. And I'm going to actually turn it right over to Suzanne at the top of the hour, I think right now, 8 o'clock, there we are. And she will walk you through the beginning intro of our webinar, and then we'll turn it over to our facilitators, Liz and Kaitlyn. So over to you, Suzanne.
Thank you very much, Robin. I'm going to start by sharing my screen here, and just bear with me. Thank you very much for joining us for tonight's webinar. I'd like to start us off with the land acknowledgement. As we gather together on this virtual platform, we acknowledge that we're each joining from the ancestral or unceded lands of Inuit, Métis, and First Nations peoples. The Canadian Childcare Federation's office is located on the traditional unceded territory of the Algonquin Anishinaabe people. We honor their enduring connection to the land, waters, and culture, and we recognize all Indigenous people who have lived on and cared for these lands since time immemorial, those who live here now and the 7 generations to come. We recognize the harms and injustices of the past and the ongoing impacts of colonization. We affirm our commitment to truth, reconciliation, and meaningful collaboration with Indigenous communities. As Indigenous peoples have always done, we strive to be responsible stewards of the land and to respect the cultures, ceremonies, and contributions of all who call it home. We invite you to take a moment of reflection, and if you feel comfortable, to share the name of the Indigenous lands you are joining in from the chat box. Let us honor the many peoples and places across these lands and consider the tangible steps each of us can take to move forward in a spirit of truth, reconciliation, and collaboration. I know everyone's excited about certificates, and the certificates will be sent to the email address that you provided when you attend tonight's full live webinar using the name you provided within 3 days. Before contacting us, please check your email, spam, junk folders. And don't miss out, if you like our webinars, get on our mailing list, and then you'll have all the news about upcoming webinars, courses, and more delivered right to your inbox. And we'd like to tell you about Canadian Childcare Federation and our affiliates. We have affiliates all across Canada, and hopefully you're a member of one of our affiliate organizations. If you are in Newfoundland, Labrador, the affiliate there is the Association of Early Childhood Educators in Newfoundland and Labrador. And the acronym is Attisano, and they are the professional organization in Newfoundland and Labrador for those with qualifications in early childhood education or working in childcare or related fields. They have been representing the issues of their members since 1989, when it was incorporated as a not-for-profit organization. Attisano represents its members' issues on boards and committees, in addition to meeting with government, and they bring a wealth of knowledge and expertise to the table as the issues are discussed. Thank you very much. And now to our presenters, Dr. Elizabeth Attisano and Dr. Kaitlyn Parks. Over to you.
Great, thank you so much, Suzanne. So I'm just gonna try to share my screen now. Just a second. Okay, and everyone can see my screen?
Yeah.
Okay, so Great, thanks, Liz. Okay, so tonight we're going to be talking about how you can support children's language and literacy by sharing books with them. We're really excited to be here and so grateful to be partnering with the Canadian Childcare Federation to make this webinar possible. My name is Dr. Kaitlyn Parks. I'm a program specialist at the Canadian Children's Literacy Foundation, also known as CCLF. We're a national nonprofit that promotes and develops literacy initiatives, champions literacy partnerships across the country, and supports people like you in building strong literacy foundations in homes, early learning spaces, and communities. I have a PhD in developmental psychology from the University of Western Ontario, and I'm thrilled to be here today with my colleague Liz, who I'll now let introduce herself.
Hi everyone, I'm Dr. Liz Attisano. I also hold a PhD in developmental psychology, and I completed a postdoc in the School of Public Health Sciences at the University of Waterloo. And again, like Kaitlyn said, I'm really looking forward to diving into today's topic with all of you. So before we get into the content, we also want to take a moment to acknowledge the land that the Canadian Children's Literacy Foundation works from in Toronto. So our offices are located on lands that are covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit, and is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples. Our work takes place on the traditional territory and the enduring home of First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people across the country now known as Canada. And core to our beliefs is that oral and written storytelling can contribute to honoring, respecting, and protecting the languages and cultures of Indigenous peoples who have lived here for millennia. We are committed to learning about the traditions and current realities of the Indigenous peoples of this land. We strive to listen to and learn from Indigenous ways of nurturing literacy in children, and to support those traditions in communities where we are invited to work together. So this evening, we are going to discuss together what is early literacy and how you can help children from birth to age 5 develop 5 foundational literacy skills. We're then going to provide practical strategies that you can easily integrate into your read-alouds to help foster early literacy with the children that you work with. And then we're going to reflect and recap some of the key messages together from the workshop this evening. So before we jump in, I just want to give everyone a moment to reflect on your current practice. These questions are really just for you, and there's no pressure to share right now. So just think about what you're already doing to support children's language and literacy during play and shared book reading. So our first question we have is, how do you help children learn and use language during story times and during read-alouds? Our second question, when you read with children, how do you make the story engaging? Do you use voices? Do you ask any questions? Do you connect the story to their world? And again, just giving you a couple moments to think about it. And how often do you pause during a book to talk with children? Do you invite the children to share their ideas, ask any questions, or take turns in having a conversation? All right, thank you all. We're just going to ask that you try to keep these reflections in mind as we go on this evening, and there's really no need to write anything down unless you want to. So now we're going to discuss literacy and how it's represented in the early years. So when people hear this term early literacy, they often wonder if it's about explicitly teaching young children how to read. And as most of you may know, this is most definitely not the case. Early literacy refers to the skills that children need to learn before learning how to read. So it actually refers to the skills that they need to build that critical foundation for later reading and writing success. And you as educators can help babies and young children develop these skills and support their brain development by engaging in loving interactions and creating a language-rich environment through singing, talking, reading, and sharing stories. So early literacy activities like singing, talking, reading, and sharing stories all help children develop the skills which are foundational for learning how to read. And some of these skills include using words to describe things and to tell stories, learning the connection between the words we actually say and the words we see on a page. So figuring out how books work, so how to turn the pages, which way's up, understanding that in languages like English and French, we read left to right, up to down, but that can be different in other languages. And in the older years, it includes recognizing the letters and knowing that they make the sounds that form words. So these early literacy skills are so foundational for children to arrive to school ready to learn. And there has been a lot of research on how the experiences in the early years can have significant impacts later on in life. So research has shown that a larger vocabulary size at the age of 2 leads to better literacy achievement in middle school. When children are read to every single day, they hear 1.4 million words by the age of 5, and more verbal interactions at the age of 5 leads to better cognitive skills 10 years later. So again, lets us know that what we're doing now in the earliest years of a child's life has a real impact on them for the rest of their life. And as early years educators, you all play such a critical role in supporting young children's literacy development. And you're probably already doing many things that help children develop the language and literacy skills that they need. So today we're going to go over some explicit strategies that align with how children best learn. And the goal here is really simple. It's to create learning opportunities that give children the best possible future. And that all starts with early literacy. And you're already making such an impact. And today we're just going to build upon that foundation. So we're going to focus on 5 key areas that are essential for young children's language and literacy growth. So we're going to pass it over to Kaitlyn to get into those 5 key areas.
Great, thanks so much, Liz. So the aim for the first half of this workshop is to really get into the why around early literacy. And part of the why is recognizing and understanding those 5 foundational areas that are going to help us get there that Liz mentioned. So we call these the Big Five, and we'll be referring to them a lot during this workshop. The big 5 areas that are essential for successful reading and writing in the early years are talking and communicating, understanding, knowing how print works or print concepts, sounds and letters, and then exploring early writing. So let's go into each one in a bit more detail. So when we say talking, we're referring to a child's ability to use and understand words, gestures, expressions, to share meaning and connect with others. So these skills are the basis for future learning and social growth. And what they do is they help children express their thoughts, needs, and emotions. And in the early years, supporting the development of oral language through rich conversations and storytelling and play helps children expand their vocabulary, it helps them improve their listening skills, and it helps them develop their ability to comprehend and use language. So one really great way of looking at this is to strive for more than one back and forth with a child during conversation. So this can include asking questions that require more than just a yes or no response, or connecting topics back to the child's interests and experiences to sort of keep the conversation going. So engaging in regular discussions that go beyond one back and forth is a really great way to foster children's oral language development. The next area of the Big Five is understanding, which is the ability to make sense of what is being read or heard. So, in the early years, supporting listening and comprehension can help children grasp the meaning behind stories, conversations, and the instructions that you give them. A lot of the time in the early years, you're reading with children and they're learning how to listen to what you're saying. So, developing this skill early on allows children to connect ideas, predict outcomes, and engage more deeply with books and spoken language later on as they get older. And so some of the ways you can develop these skills are also by asking those open-ended questions, talking about the stories that you're reading together, and then encouraging children to even retell events from the stories that you're sharing. The next is knowing how print works, or print concepts. So this includes recognizing that print has meaning. So think of signs and menus at restaurants. It also includes learning how to hold a book, which is something that Liz mentioned earlier. So where to begin reading when you're holding a book, the direction that text moves. So like she said, from left to right and top to bottom in English and French. And then supporting the development of print exploration in the early years, what it does is it helps build familiarity with books, and it helps children feel more confident when they do start learning how to read. So what you can do is you can point to words as you read them out loud when you're sharing a story together. You can even allow the child to handle the book themselves and sort of turn those pages and just interact with an actual book. What this does is it just encourages them to engage with text in really meaningful ways early on, before they can even read themselves. The next area is all about connecting sounds and letters. And when we say this, we are referring to the ability to connect letters with the sounds that they represent. So for example, knowing that the letter C makes the k sound in cat. And this skill is really important in the early years because it does form the foundation for being able to read words properly. It's super important, but it's often overlooked. And you can support children's ability to link letters and sounds through really fun, engaging activities like rhyming songs. You can play games and letter exploration. We'll talk a little bit more about that later. But yeah, just think about rhyming songs that you're singing together during maybe cleanup time. Maybe you're emphasizing different sounds in words and having children group toys by the first sound that they make. And the final area of the big five is early writing. So when we talk about early writing, we're talking about how children use symbols, such as letters and words, to communicate thoughts and ideas. As I'm sure you know, writing in the very early years can begin with just simple marks, scribbles and drawings that can gradually evolve over time into recognizable letters and words, and then maybe even their own little short stories. And so some of the ways that you can support these skills are by building confidence and nurturing those early scribbles, helping children learn that the ideas that they share with you verbally can be written down on paper and make a story too, just like the ones that you share together. Okay, so we've talked a lot about the big five in theory and just what it means, but what does this actually look like in your learning spaces? Let's take an example. So imagine a child pretending to be at a grocery store. They're engaging in pretend play. This is just a perfect moment to introduce different vocabulary. So you could say things like cashier, receipt, maybe checkout, all of these things, produce. And you can also describe what they're doing as they play. So what this would do is it would help support the first area of the big five, which is talking. For understanding, maybe the child's following a recipe. Oh, I didn't click anything. Interesting. Okay. It just went forward. That's okay. So for understanding, maybe a child's following a recipe in a pretend kitchen and you're asking them what comes next. To support print concepts, you can add things like menus or signs to your dramatic play areas. So you can think of things like a doctor's office, maybe a store, a cafe. It could also be something as simple as pointing out labels on food. Or traffic signs when you're outside if you're going for a walk. So this just shows that print is part of the world around them. So these are really great ways that you can do that. Sounds and letters can come in during everyday transitions like cleanup time. So for example, you could ask children, like I mentioned, to group toys by the first sound that they make. So maybe there's a duck, a dog, and a deer. And so they can group all of those. Or you might say soup starts with S, can you hear it? So just sort of emphasizing those different sounds. And then for early writing, maybe a child is playing server if they're a little bit older and they're writing down your order. Even if it's just scribbles, that's early writing. You can also model writing too. for a younger child and encourage them to sort of try themselves. So maybe you can write down their order for them, or maybe their symptoms if they're playing doctor and things like that. So these are all great ways to encourage early writing. So basically, the big five aren't just something that can be supported during playtime, though. They can be supported through many activities that you're likely already doing in your environment. And one of those ways is through read-alouds. So I'm going to pass it over to Liz to explore that in a little bit more detail.
Thanks, Kaitlyn. So there's so many ways to build the big five in the learning in your learning environments, like Kaitlyn said, but we're going to share one of the richest ways to support these areas using shared book storybook reading, because this is something that you're likely already doing with the children that you work with. So the focus here is to read with the children rather than reading to the children. So it's less about reading every word and more so about responding to their interests, their questions, their gestures, and turning every moment into a rich learning opportunity. So research shows that an interactive story time really boosts children's language development. When you're responding to a child's gestures or sounds, like pointing to a picture or making a noise, you're helping to build their communication skills. And for really young children, Read Alouds provides essential exposure to new words, new sounds, and ideas, even before they are able to fully understand. So you can encourage children to name the objects or describe the pictures that they see. And remember, it's completely okay if children aren't sitting still or staying focused on the book the entire time. You can let them hold the book, touch the pages, explore the pictures. Their curiosity is all a good sign that they're engaged. Other research has also found that the language used in books includes sentence structures that children don't usually hear in everyday conversations. So these sentence structures are really important for helping children develop their own literacy skills. So the the sentence structures are really like proper grammar with complex sentences. So that means when you're reading to the child, you're giving them a chance to hear and learn new types of language that they wouldn't normally encounter. The study found that even picture books targeted to the very youngest of children contain a wider range of sophisticated words than the language that you would use in everyday speech as you're talking to the children that you work with. So now we're going to show you a video of an interactive read aloud in a busy learning environment. So there's going to be a lot going on in the video, but just try to focus on how the educator is asking the children questions and getting them involved in the story. And as you watch, really think about what the children might be learning from in these interactions and try to imagine how something like this might work in your own learning space. So we know the children in the video might be a little older than some of the ones that you work with, and that's totally fine. Just try to picture how you could do something similar with the age group that you care for.
How can reading aloud to children help support their oral language development? Which books seem to inspire the most language in your classroom? And why do you think these books inspire so much discussion?
The shark said, help me read this. The shark said, then I'll munch and I'll crunch and I'll smash your house in.
You probably already read stories to your children every day. A great deal of fun and enjoyment can come out of sharing a good book. Children often want to respond to the story by sharing their own experiences or by pointing out something in the picture.
Why couldn't he? What's hanging out? The tooth is out?
Because of children's innate desire to respond to stories, story time is one time of the day when children are likely to fully engage with language.
Our friend the ladybug likes to eat these.
Teacher Patty Gardner uses interactive read-alouds to encourage the children in her class to share their thoughts and ideas. Before rereading a story that she's read before, she engages children in a conversation that is related to the book.
He likes to eat aphids. Oh, he likes to eat aphids.
Grouchy Ladybug's one of my favorites because it's repetitive, an interactive story, and helps the children be a part of it. The repetitive nature is important for them. They anticipate the text.
You're not big enough, said the grouchy ladybug, and it flew off.
We're trying to find different ways for them to participate in reading a story that we've read at least once before. I think read-alouds need to be more interactive because it allows the children on a variety of developmental levels to participate in the story.
Oh, you're not big enough, said the grouchy ladybug.
Look how tiny it is to the lobster.
And it flew off. Nice job, Lily. I like how you noticed. Lily noticed how much smaller the ladybug is to the lobster.
By taking the time to acknowledge and respond to children's comments about the story, Patty turns her read aloud time into an opportunity for children to engage in rich oral language.
Effective reading to children enhances language development in a number of ways. First, when you read a book, children listen to you carefully because they're eager to hear what will happen next. During this process, they develop solid listening skills and listening comprehension. Second, as they listen to your story, children make connections between the story and their own lives, and they want to share their experiences. This stimulates their oral language practice.
This is called a praying mantis. That's a very thin bug that stands on its back legs.
Because there's one in one of my tag books.
In one of your tag
And
books?
I saw one in the garden.
You did?
And I saw one in...
Third, book reading provides opportunities to introduce new vocabulary to children.
If you insist, said the elephant, raising its trunk and showing its big tusks. What are tusks? Put your hand up if you have an idea what tusks are.
Like this.
Not yet, sweetie. I'm not quite ready for you to turn the page. Lily, what's a tusk?
Something that hangs out that's sharp.
Children gain the most from read-alouds when they have the opportunity to engage in discussion before, during, and after reading the book.
Let's talk about what you think this book is going to be about. Kiara, what do you think? And I'll write your words, okay?
I selected Rosie's Walk today because there's pages that do not have text, which allow children to engage in a lot of oral language using the pictures to be able to predict what will happen next.
There's a fox chasing the chicken.
There's a fox chasing the chicken, you're right.
It's always interesting to hear what they think the story is about, and not only hear what they think it's about, but why they think it's about what they think it's about.
Dominic, what do you think?
I think it's about a farm.
You think it's about a farm? Why do you think it's about a farm?
I think it's about a little red hen in a farm.
Oh, does that remind you of Little Red Hen?
The important part of shared reading is the word shared. It allowed children the opportunity to engage in conversation.
He bumped into a tree.
Oh, he bumped into the rake from the other page.
And his neck gets twisted.
And his neck got twisted. Does everyone see that? Thank you. See, anyone else notice anything?
So that anytime there's an opportunity to speak and engage in oral language, you're expanding your vocabulary, and the particular book has a lot of the conceptual words that we want children to learn over, under, around.
So what's happening here? Hold on. Alex, what's happening here?
He ran in the water.
He did. The hen went around, and the fox went in the water.
Okay, so now that we've watched that example of an interactive read aloud, what we want to do now is talk about some practical ways that you can make the most of story time with your children. So we're going to walk through 5 strategies you can use during shared reading to build those 5 areas of language and literacy that we've been talking about, the big 5. And these are just small intentional moves that have a really big impact. And many of you are probably already doing a lot of these. So here's what they are. The first is to get children talking more. You saw that a lot in the video, I'm sure, as the educator was sort of asking them questions and things like that. The second one is bringing the story to life. So think animated voices, expressions, all those really fun things. The third is to grow their words by introducing new vocabulary. And then you want to show them how books work. So this is the front of the book, this is the back of the book, these are the words on the page, things like that. And then you want to play with sounds and letters. And so I'm going to go over each one, and then I'll show you an example using a book called Welcome Baby. And so I just want you to see how some of these strategies can kind of come to life in addition to that video that we watched together. But before we dive into these 5 strategies, I just wanted to take a quick moment to acknowledge where they came from. So these 5 strategies are based on a research-backed tool called the Emergent Literacy and Language Early Childhood Checklist for Teachers, which is a mouthful, so we call it the ELECT for short form. And a group of researchers in Australia developed it after studying what kinds of story time interactions actually lead to gains in children's language and literacy development. So one of the key people behind this work is Dr. Tessa Weedbin. There's a picture of her up on the screen, and she's a lecturer in English, literacy, and pedagogy at La Trobe University in Australia. She created the ELECT as a practical observational tool to help early years educators like yourselves support children's oral language and early literacy during shared book reading. Okay, so now that we know where these strategies come from and that they're grounded in real research with real educators like yourselves, let's walk through each of the strategies together. And like I said, many of these were shown in the video that we watched together, but I just want to go over them one by one. So the first is all about getting children talking, and this might seem counterintuitive during shared book reading, but it's actually really important to have children engage with the stories that you're reading together. It just really helps build their language and vocabulary skills, and you can do this by asking those open-ended questions and striving for multiple back and forths with children. You can ask them about things that happened earlier or things that are going to maybe happen in the future, just like the educator did in the video. The second is about bringing stories to life. So you can use your face to express different emotions or how the characters might feel. You can act surprised or change your tone based on what's happening in the story. I think all of these things that kind of just make a story more exciting. The third is about growing their words and introducing new vocabulary. So you can help them connect what's happening in the story with other events in their life. In the video, they were talking about a praying mantis, I think, and the little girl said that she saw one in her garden. So that's a perfect example. You can ask them questions like, maybe if you're reading a book about the zoo, do they remember going to the zoo and what animals they saw? You can introduce new words and define them in just easy ways throughout the story. So remember earlier, I was talking about how you could introduce words like cashier, receipt, menu, all those things during dramatic play if a child was doing, say, pretend restaurant. This is kind of what I'm talking about here. You can create opportunities where you can highlight these kinds of things throughout the story. Another example is if you're reading a book where a character is very hungry, like the very hungry caterpillar, you can introduce words like peckish or famished and all of these different things that mean hungry. The fourth is all about showing how books work. So you can do this by pointing to the front of the book. I have a book here called Welcome Baby. When I'm going to show you how to do a read aloud with it. So it would be pointing to the book and saying, this book is called Welcome Baby by Barbara Reed. This is the front of the book here. And this is the back of the book. So just kind of introducing the book to the child. And then the last one is all about playing with sounds and letters. So this one is really important, like I've said. You can highlight unique sounds, sound patterns, or even break different sounds apart during stories so that children can learn to read and spell new words. So for example, you could ask them to march or hop or clap to different syllables in a word. So maybe like hungry or baby, and have them sort of move around and stay active during story time. Like Liz mentioned, I think earlier, having children actually move around can really help them with their comprehension, even though sometimes we don't think that that's necessarily the case. It's actually really good. So this is something you can certainly do. You could also say this is letter T, what letter is this, and kind of point out those different letters and sounds and things like that. So let me just show you what all of this could look like during a story. Like I said, I'm going to show you with this familiar favorite, Welcome Baby, that I have here. So I do have a copy of it here with me, but I'm just going to show you the first page, which we've put up on the screen. This is the very first, the start of the book. And I just want to show you how you can use all 5 of the strategies that we've been talking about with just even the first page alone. So first, I'm going to introduce the book. So this is called Welcome Baby. See the titles here, Welcome Baby, and this is by Barbara Reed. This is the front of the book here, and this is the back of the book. And so I'm going to read the book now. And so if you're working with children who are a little bit older, just like the educator did in the video, maybe you want to ask them what they think the book is going to be about, and things like that. So, welcome, baby, welcome. All the world is new. New means something we haven't seen before. Can you find something new around you? And all the world is waiting to be introduced to you. So I might point at the illustration and say, who is this? Is this mommy holding the baby? I might say, look, there's a bird. There's a bird here. Bird starts with the B sound, just like the B in baby. Bird and baby both start with the B sound. I might point to the illustration and say, shh, the baby is sleeping. We have to be extra quiet. So I don't know if you guys got a good idea. I think I was kind of not really showing you the book too much, but you can see on the screen here that you can have all 5 of these strategies just in one page. And there's lots of different opportunities within this book or a favorite book that your kids love that you can do this. So did you notice what I did here was I was trying to get the listener talking a little bit more. So I asked them, who is holding baby? I also could have maybe pointed to the man here and said, who is this in the picture? Who is that? Just to see if the child could respond. Maybe I'd like to ask a more open-ended question like, who do you think that is? Or what is baby doing right now? I also tried to bring the story to life a little bit just on that first page by saying, shh, baby's sleeping. So just saying that quietly really can help children engage with the story. I tried to grow the child's words by focusing on the word new. So that was on the first page, but this book also uses the word big. So maybe that's another word that you could expand on if you wanted to. At the very start, I showed how books work by introducing the cover of the book and the author and the back of the book. And I tried to read along with my finger as I was doing the read aloud. So just kind of showing as I said each word, my finger would go over the words like that. That's a really great way to show how books work. And then finally, I did try to play with sounds and letters by highlighting the way the sentences rhyme. So that's actually really great just by itself, just really emphasizing the rhyming of this book because this book rhymes all throughout it. And then pointing to the bird and the baby and then saying they both start with the B sound. So you can do those things too, and that's really great. So these are just a few examples with just that one page. There's so many other ways that you could do this, and you definitely don't need to do all 5 on one page. You can totally spread it out, but you know your kids best, you know your environment best, so you can take from these and build off of them as children engage with those. So one thing that we kind of want to do now after we've gone over these strategies and shown what they look like through the video and then through that read aloud is to give everybody a chance to reflect on how some of these could show up in your setting. You don't need to think about every single one, maybe just pick one, whatever seems easiest and most realistic. But we just want to get everybody to think about maybe what was your favorite childhood book, or maybe there's a book that children that you're in your environment that they really love a book right now. They're like fixated on it, and just think about how maybe one of these strategies could be used during a read aloud. Yeah, so just how could you use them while reading a book that a child or you really enjoys? And we'll just give you a few minutes to kind of think about that. Feel free to share in the chat if you want to, and we'll do our best to try and read those, or you can quietly reflect on them if that works better for you. So it looks like we have some messages coming through in the chat. So some people are saying, I've begun to ask my students what the title was about, what the story was about, and what they liked best about the story. So that's really great. Those are great ways to build their comprehension and understanding. And we saw the educator kind of do that in the beginning when they asked what they thought the story would be about with the fox. By showing a photo and explaining it. The Very Hungry Caterpillar. My kids love Brown Bear. Brown Bear, what do you see? Oh, I love that book. They love to open and touch and change the pages. That's amazing. That's such a great way to get them familiar with how books work and things like that. So those print concepts and things like that that we've been talking about, just even touching the book is great. Yeah, there's a monster at the end of this book was a favorite of mine. I loved Grover. I also recall liking the anticipation of turning the page. Robin, yes. That's awesome. I love that. Touchy-feely books are great. Three Little Pigs. Playing with sounds. My littles are really into animals, so we make animal sounds. They point at pages when there's an animal, so I would say the animal then before I make the sound. Most of the time, the children would love that animal sound. Some animals, they're not so sure, so I would make the sound and say it and then ask them to mimic it. That is perfect. That's also a great opportunity to introduce sound letter links and things like that. So that's perfect. You can introduce new words to that too. I think that's fantastic. Great. No, these are awesome. I have karaoke and they love to sing. I love that. That's such a perfect way to introduce all of these, and it's so fun too. I think that's fantastic. Yeah, so if you can't find the chat, there should be like a little question mark at the top if people are struggling, and you can put your responses in there. My littles have been obsessed with Red Riding Hood recently. They enjoy when I read it to them using intonations for the different voices. I love that. That's so engaging. I feel like I would love that as an adult as well. I don't think read alouds are exclusively for children. I think we all could love them, you know? Itsy Bitsy Spider. I love that. These are all great. Thank you so much, everyone, for taking the time to reflect. And feel free to keep adding some of your thoughts in the chat, and we'll get to them when we can. But I'm going to move on now. So I'm just going to pass it over to Liz to wrap things up for us for the evening.
Thank you, Kaitlyn. It's so funny. I particularly loved hearing about the karaoke and the animal sounds. And yeah, and I think we need to think that like graphic audiobooks are now becoming a thing for adults, and I think that's what the experience that we're trying to do with children, right? Just trying to make it as engaging as possible for them, just really boost their language skills. So as we wrap up this evening's workshop, I just want to leave everyone with some key messages. So first and foremost, we know that early literacy experiences are essential to a child's growth. These early moments of engagement with books and language really lay that foundation for lifelong learning and success. And the skills that children develop in the early years have a profound impact on their future academic and personal achievements. Second, there's a wealth of research out there that tells us exactly on how we can best teach children how to read. So we know what works and we have evidence-based strategies that we can implement in our learning environments to support every child's literacy journey. Third, shared book reading is one of the richest opportunities for building foundational literacy skills. Through interactive shared book reading, children naturally explore language, sounds, print, and storytelling. So embedding literacy into playful, everyday moments can help build those 5 essential pillars. So talking, understanding, and listening, print concepts, sound letter links, and early writing. And finally, what matters most is children are being surrounded with words and that they're having fun. The strategies that we talked about today don't really require extra materials or special activities. They can be woven into your existing routines to spark meaningful conversations that boost language and comprehension skills in really engaging child-led ways. So now we want to come back to the questions that we asked you at the beginning of the workshop this evening, but this time with fresh eyes. So again, we're just going to ask you to think quietly with your answers. And as you reflect, consider a book or an area in your space where you could use these strategies. Like Kaitlyn said earlier, maybe there's a favorite book that your littles like to read. Or maybe there's even a child that could really benefit from the use of these strategies. So for our first question, how will you help children learn and use language during read alouds? Now that you've learned some new strategies or maybe been affirmed that some of the strategies that you're doing already are really helpful for their learning.
I wanted to share a comment that I thought was really awesome that just came up as people are
Yes,
thinking.
please.
And feel free to also, if you want to share your thoughts on the questions that Liz is sharing, you can share them in the question thread too if you're open to it. But Sherry said we've been into the cow likes cookies lately. We don't just focus on the cow, we talk about what other animals like to eat and what sounds the animals make. I've also been asked if the cow talks to the farmer and had a conversation around how he knew the cow likes cookies. I love that book. I
That's
think
so
that's really
cute.
cute. Yeah.
That's wonderful. Yeah, and I think that's something to remember too, that these really funny, joyful experiences are all part of that learning journey with children as well. We want to be teaching them different things, but it's important that everyone's having fun while we're doing it as well. So for our second question, when you're reading with children, how will you make the story more engaging? Are you going to try using some voices, asking some more questions, or seeing how we can connect the story back to their lives? Maybe if it's a new book, we can try to read it before quickly to think about what we want to talk about, just to help the day a little more. And for our last question, how often will you pause during a book to talk with the children? Will you invite more back and forth conversations, ask more open-ended questions, or encourage them to share their ideas? Maybe there's one particular child who's a little more shy and you want to help break them out of their shell a little bit. Or maybe you got a talker and you're just trying to figure out how to engage them a little more.
Some of the comments coming in are saying that they are going to be speaking clearly and expressively using gestures and facial expressions as they
Perfect.
continue. I like to change voices and imitate the sounds of animals. I pause often to ask children, what do you think will happen next?
That's amazing. You really want them thinking about the story and the cause and effect of it all.
Creating inviting space to make them feel comfortable and ready to listen. I really like that one too. Having like an intentional space for these types of interactions is really great.
Absolutely. It gets them thinking like it's time to do this particular activity. It makes them put on a different hat, if you will. That's great, everyone. Thank you. And I want everyone to just really take that moment to sit with your reflections. Think about what feels exciting, what feels doable, and even small changes on how we talk with children can have a really big impact on their language and their literacy growth. And if you're feeling inspired, perhaps jot down one thing that you would like to try this week. And remember that you're not doing it alone. We're all learning and growing together. So as we're wrapping up, we'd love to continue to stay connected. So you can follow the Canadian Children's Literacy Foundation on social media for news, updates, and information on our training and our workshops. All our handles are listed on the slide here, so please feel free to follow us and stay engaged. We also have a short survey we'd love for you to complete. It should only take about 3 to 5 minutes, and it just really helps us improve our future workshops for amazing early years educators like yourselves. So we have the QR code on the slide, but we're also going to add the survey link to the chat as well. I think I'm going to try to send it. It might only go to the organizers, but we're going to try to send it out to everyone. And we'll make sure it's available to you after the session. It's passed along. So we just want to say thank you so much again for being here today and for all the incredible work that you do every day to support children's language and literacy development. Your dedication really makes a lasting difference in the lives of the young learners, and we're so grateful to be a part of this journey with you all. Thank you, Robin, for sharing it. I think for some reason, I'm not able to see the questions in the chat. I think I'm logged in as a panelist instead of an organizer. So Kaitlyn's been doing an amazing job moderating all that. But thank you for sharing it, Robin.
There was a question asking if you knew of any books that were to be sung as opposed to just reading them aloud. And they mentioned Brown Bear, and also the Polar Bear one.
Right.
And I know I had, like, my group really enjoyed Chicka Chicka Boom Boom. And I loved reading that one too, because I mean, it wasn't really singing, but it had just that great rhythm that was a lot of fun.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know any like particular ones that like you need to sing rather than say them, but I think if there's any book that you want to make into a song, I also think that's a fun activity too. If someone is musical and they want to make it into a song, I think that's really fun for everyone
I
involved,
think
and they can hear the
there,
different rhymes.
I
Rafi
think
has
that
some
there
books.
are books that are made from songs.
Yes.
So if you
Yeah.
look for them, you might be able to find books
Yeah.
that are actually songs turned into a book.
Yeah. Rafi has a whole collection of those. I remember using those with my son years ago. I mean, I'm dating myself. It was a long time ago, but I'm sure they're still available out there. You can get Wheels on the Bus, and you get Baby Beluga and ones like that. They're kind of baby board books that are really nice to have. And something that came to mind for me, I was laughing about, was back when I was working in childcare. I picked up a book I loved. I was so excited to read to the kids, and I used to go to the library all the time because I loved reading aloud to the kids and having different books in our book center. And it was called Sheep on a Ship, I think. And I loved it because the pictures are so engaging, and I loved the cadence of the book, and it was all sort of rhyming words, and I just loved reading it. I read it aloud a few times, and I just laughed and laughed, and I thought, this is going to be great. So I get there the next day, and I've got 2 to 5 year olds. I start to read it, and it just bombed. I mean, they were so flat. There's like, but like they're just so not interested. And I thought, how could I have got this so wrong? I love this book. This is like an amazing book. And then I realized that it wasn't about me and sort of what I wanted to read, but it was about sort of picking up on what they were doing. And some of them were kind of looking really closely at the pictures, which were very, very engaging. And I thought, okay, well, maybe I could just turn this around and start talking about the pictures, start talking about what they're looking at, and sort of take a hint from what they're doing and make the book a bit more interactive and evolve, maybe not from the words that were on the page, but from the pictures they were seeing, because they were very intricate and very involved. And I mean, you never see a bunch of sheep on a ship and they're hanging off with like pirate hats on and they're like swinging from things and all sorts of stuff. So I thought, just to be able to make sure you look at the children, make sure you know what they need and want, and turn it into something that is valuable for them. Even though I lost the chance to read all the fun words I liked, it just, for that particular age group and that particular day, it just wasn't hitting home. So you just have to sort of adapt, and it was still a big hit, but just in a much different way than I anticipated. So
Are you recommending we read The Room, Robin?
read the room. It's all about reading the room, isn't it? But I mean, it's so exciting to have all these tips and tricks, because I think it's really inspiring and helps people to improve their practice right away. I mean, there's lots of great ideas that Liz, you and Kaitlyn presented to us tonight, and I'm just so excited. And I wish I had a young one at home to read to. Maybe I'll go read to my 19-year-old, but I don't think he wants to hear my stories. I might try anyway. But thanks so much for joining us tonight, for everybody who joined us. And the certificates, as Suzanne said, will be sent out. And a little note about the certificates. I know sometimes people ask us about if the webinar will be acceptable as PD in their province or territory. That's something you actually have to look into at your end with your own regulatory body, because it differs in every community across Canada. So that's not something that we at the Canadian Childcare Federation can say yes or no to. You need to look at that from your own community. So if you want to see if it's acceptable as PD hours, which often it is in different places in Canada, you just need to check that yourself. And the other thing I want to mention is, oh yes, we will also have a survey that we'll send you in a follow-up email, just generally about webinars. So if you'd like to participate in that, that would help us as well. So thanks for everything, and thanks for joining us this evening. And we will look forward to the next time we have a great webinar with you guys.
Thank you so much, everyone. Have a
Thank
great
you.
evening.
Bye.
Bye.
Good night, everybody.